Hey story lovies, welcome to Black My Story Time, where every tale beats with truth, drama, and power. Let's get into it. Episode 3. The Confrontation. Look, Mrs. Cooper, I know you want to confront her, but leave this one alone. Walk away. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. We all know how Marcus operates. Sure, we pretend not to see it, but everyone in this town knows. We've all been affected by him. Some for the better, most for the worse. Alice leaned forward, her eyes steady on Julia's. You, of all people, know exactly what he's capable of. Julia's eyes glistened, her lips trembling. One tear slipped free. I can't, she whispered. I just can't. The pain evident in her eyes. Alice could see it. Julia wasn't thinking rationally anymore. Whether she planned to reason with the woman or confront her outright, Julia knew she was only making things worse for herself. The town was already waiting for her downfall. They relished every scrap of gossip about her. And a public confrontation would only feed the fire, giving her detractors something new to feast on. For reasons she couldn't quite explain, Alice wanted to stop her from walking straight into it. But Julia didn't care. She turned and walked out of the cafe, her gaze fixed on the boutique. Blind anger, betrayal, possession. Each emotion pushed her forward step after step. She knew she was heading into disaster. She knew what the aftermath could be. She knew Alice was right. But she couldn't stop herself. This wasn't just pride. It was territory. This town was hers. And no shiny new woman Marcus paraded through it was going to take that away from her. Across the street, the scene continued. Everyone in their place. Everyone reciting lines they hadn't been given, but somehow knew by heart. Smile just right. Flatter the new girl. Stay in Marcus Cooper's good graces. Meanwhile, Julia moved like a storm. Calm at first glance, but ready to destroy everything in her path. Alice stood frozen at the cafe door, watching her go. She sighed and whispered under her breath. She's really going to do it. She is really going to destroy herself. And in that instant, Alice knew. Whatever happened next, nothing in Lonbridge would ever be the same again. She turned halfway to re-enter the cafe, but curiosity pinned her to the sidewalk, because from what she knew of the new girl, she was no pushover. So even though Alice's heart ached a little for Julia, knowing exactly what Marcus would do to her for causing him embarrassment, another part of her couldn't walk away. She had to see how this ended as Julia got closer. One of the shop attendants spotted her. Shit! Mrs. Cooper is coming! His heart nearly stopped. He almost dropped his phone as he whispered to the girl nearest the door. Lock it! Now! He mouthed. She blinked at him, confused until she followed his gaze. Julia Cooper was coming fast. She rushed toward the door, trying not to draw attention, especially not from the new girl. But Julia noticed. Oh, she noticed. The quick glances, the panic, the whisper. She picked up her pace. They reached the door at the same time. Both their hands landed on the handle. For a brief second, neither moved. The young attendant froze, torn between duty and fear. Who was she to tell Mrs. Cooper she wasn't welcome in a store she had patronized? A store she had given status and prestige for years. Her breath caught as Julia's icy stare met hers. The air was thick, heavy, the kind that warned everyone nearby that something was about to happen. The attendant released the handle, lowering her head in silent apology. Julia shoved the door open. It slammed hard against the wall, missing the girl by inches. The sharp crack split the air like a gunshot. Every head turned, and there she was, Julia Cooper, standing in the doorway, her eyes locked on the woman holding her amari dress. Laughter stopped. Chatter died. Everyone froze. All eyes turned toward Julia, poised, sophisticated, radiating that familiar air of authority. She stood there, immaculate as ever, her designer heels clicking against the tiled floor, her bag hanging effortlessly from her arm. Whatever insecurities had gripped her moments ago were gone. Somewhere between the cafe and the store, she'd remembered who she was and just how deep her roots ran in this town. Now she moved with deliberate grace, each step measured. The staff scrambled out of her way, offering polite greetings that she didn't even acknowledge. The woman across the room, flawless, composed, every inch the picture of confidence. Her fitted jeans hugged her curves, the blush-pink silk top draped elegantly over her chest. Her hair was styled to perfection. In one hand, she still held the amari dress. She lifted her wine glass, took a slow sip, then handed it off to an attendant before turning back to the mirror. Holding the dress against her frame, she admired the reflection. And then, through the glass, her eyes met Julia's. A slow, knowing smirk curved her lips. Julia's stomach twisted. Up close, the woman was even more breathtaking than she'd imagined. Young, radiant, effortlessly confident. The kind of beauty that made people look twice without meaning to. Julia was still stunning. Everyone said so. She kept up with the latest trends, spared no expense on beauty treatments. But in that moment, standing under the boutique's bright lights, facing a woman half her age, Julia felt something she hadn't in years. She felt like she couldn't compete. And just for a second, her composure slipped. "Mrs. Cooper." The woman's tone was smooth, almost playful, that same smirk still tugging at her lips. She took a few steps forward and extended her hand, confident, unbothered. Julia didn't move. She just stared at the outstretched hand with pure contempt. For a beat, the room was silent. Then the woman let out a soft giggle, withdrawing her hand with exaggerated grace. "Well, I guess that means we won't be friends," she said, her tone dripping with mock sympathy. "That's all right. I'll introduce myself anyway." She tilted her head slightly, eyes sparkling with amusement. "I'm Melanie. Maybe you've heard of me. I think that's why you're here." Julia looked her up and down, slow and deliberate, before shaking her head. For a moment, she was too stunned to speak. This woman had some nerve. "I know you are aware that that is my dress." "Yes, I know. And it is a beautiful piece, Mrs. Cooper," Melanie began, her tone dripping with admiration. "You know, I actually contacted the designer myself because I just had to have this dress. But she told me it's a one-of-a-kind piece. No duplicates, no replicas." She gave a light laugh, her eyes flicking to Julia, still holding the dress to her frame. "And I understand that. I mean, just look at it. The detailing, the sequins, the hand-stitched beading. The time she must have spent creating this masterpiece." Melanie paused, watching Julia carefully for a reaction. But Julia remained still, perfectly composed, not a single emotion slipping through. "What's a girl to do, Mrs. Cooper?" Melanie continued, her tone sweet as sugar but sharp beneath the surface. "I have an important event coming up, and this is the only design I can picture myself in." Julia's anger simmered beneath her calm exterior. She knew exactly what Melanie was doing. A performance, thinly veiled as admiration. And her message was clear. She would get the dress, because Marcus would make sure of it. "You have no shame," Julia finally said, her voice low but trembling with rage. "You walk into my town, Shack up with my husband holding onto my dress, and this is how you behave? Her words hung in the air like smoke, sharp, bitter, impossible to ignore. In all honesty, Julia had expected Melanie to crumble at the sight of her, to shrink, apologize, maybe even run. That would have made things easy. That's how it usually went. But Melanie didn't flinch, and in that moment, Julia saw it clearly. The confidence, the defiance. She had her claws in Marcus. Julia had seen this before. She had lived it, as the staff pretended to be busy, rearranging hangers, folding clothes that were already perfect. They took quick glances toward the unfolding scene. The boutique manager, Deborah, hovered nearby, ready to step in if things got out of hand. Melanie shrugged casually and handed the dress to Deborah. "I'll be coming back to make the alterations," she said coolly. Then, as if Julia weren't even standing there, she reached for a silk blouse on the nearest rack and ran her fingers slowly across the fabric, studying it with feigned interest. Julia's gaze burned into her, sharp, furious, her chest rising and falling as she fought to stay composed. Every muscle in her body screamed to lash out, but she drew in a deep breath, forcing the calm through gritted teeth. "You are not getting that dress," Julia muttered, her voice trembling with restrained fury. "You hear me?" Melanie turned toward her, that same sly smile tugging at her lips. "Come on, Mrs. Cooper," she said lightly, though her tone cut like glass. "If you don't calm down, you might just give yourself a heart attack. All this huffing and puffing." She let out a mock sigh. "You know, anxiety at your ripe old age can be dangerous." She smirked, turning the blouse in her hand as if Julia weren't even worth the effort. "I'm here to shop, and that's exactly what I plan to do. So you can stand there playing the loyal wife," she added, her eyes glinting. "Or just leave," she said with a shrug. Melanie smiled, a slow, condescending curl of her lips. Julia froze for a moment, breathing hard. That's when she heard it. The faint curl in Melanie's words. An accent. She wasn't even Jamaican. The realization made Julia's blood boil. How dare this woman, coming into her town, standing in her store, trying to belittle her. And she wasn't even from here. Her fists clenched again. The humiliation burned in her chest. With that, Julia lost it. Thank you for joining me, my story lovies. Remember, every voice matters, and every story has power. If you love good drama and Caribbean stories, don't just watch. Join the family. Hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching. And stay tuned for the next episode of When the Crown Falls, an audio series.